Okay, so the big thing with solve by factoring, the one big thing we want to try to do for this one is we want to set the equation equal to 0. Now, there may be a couple of special cases every now and again that you don't have to do that, but pretty much most everything we're going to do, we want the equation equal to 0. Okay. All right. If it doesn't, just rewrite the equation equal to 0. Then you're going to factor the equation. And that's where we'll go back to the sheets we've been working with the last couple of days. So we'll rewrite it so it equals 0. If it's not equal to 0, and most of the time they're probably going to be equal to 0. And then you're going to factor. So that's the part where we just get practice on everything we've been doing the last couple of days. And then here's where we're going to go one extra step for that one, is that once we've got these parentheses, we're going to set each parentheses equal to 0. And after we do that, we're going to solve. Now, and the solving will be really easy. It's going to be maybe a 1, maybe a 2-step problem at most as you go through these. So the solving part, when we get to the end on this one, it's not going to be hard at all. Okay, now one other thing we're going to add into this one. Whatever your highest power of x is, or whatever variable they give, if it's t or m or x or p or q, doesn't matter. Whatever, we'll just say your highest power of x, that also equals the number of solutions. Okay, so set it equal to 0. If it's not, we're going to rewrite it so it does. Then we're going to do the factoring. Where we're just, and again, it's just going to be practice what we've been in the last couple of days. And then we're going to add on one more step on the end of it, where we're going to set each parentheses equal to 0, and then we solve it. Okay, but again, the main thing is we're going to be doing the factoring. So this is just more practice on factoring. So if you didn't get a chance to practice in the homework the last couple of days, we'll get a chance to today to do a little more practice. Okay, so we're just going to solve it. So we'll go x squared minus 5x minus 14 equal to 0. Okay, so what you've got to do is figure out, okay, what am I doing in this part? How many terms do I have, and what have I got to do for this thing? So if you just go through and count, RD equals 0, right? So in that case, you got 3 terms. So we know we're going to be doing this part. And again, the first number is 1, so we get to do our shortcut. We just need to look for the factors of negative 14, whose sum equals negative 5. Okay. And again, not that many for 14, there's not that many options. It's either 1 times 14. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to just use that part to make sure we get the signs correct. The one thing we do know, since the sum is negative 5, bigger number has to be negative. So it's going to be a negative 14. All right. And again, to get the other number, we're just going to take a negative 14 and divide it by negative 14. If you've got 2 negatives, it makes the answer a positive. It's going to be a positive 1 and a negative 14. Now, again, that doesn't get us to negative 5. So we've got to use our other numbers, which would be 2 and 7, negative and positive. Okay, if you do 2 minus 7, that is negative 5, so that's the pair that we're looking for. All right, so that's x plus 2 and x minus 7 equal to 0. Question?
Will it still be right if, like, the 7 was negative and the 2 was positive?
No, you can switch the order up. Like you could put like, if you had the question was, what about if we? So you could switch the order up like that. But if you made this positive and that negative, then it would not be. Basically, the middle term would have to be the opposite sign. There's have to be a plus in the middle for that to be the case. So. Okay, now yesterday, that's where we stopped. We were done. We were going to go with it. Now, and some people always ask, how do I know to go any farther? If it says solve or it's got the equal 0 in there somewhere, that means you've got to go that one extra step now. And then you're going to take this x plus 2, set it equal to 0. And then you're going to take the x minus 7 and set it equal to 0. Okay, and again, the math on the solving part should be pretty easy because if it's x plus 2 equals 0, we're just going to subtract 2 from both sides. So we get x equals negative 2. Since it's x minus 7 equals 0, we would add 7 to both sides. So we get x equals 7. Okay, and that's what we're going to do today with these. Is we're going to do the factoring just like we've done the last few days. But then when we get to the end, we've got our parentheses. We're going to go one more step and take each parentheses and set equal to 0. And again, the solving part should be pretty straightforward because it's not going to be real complicated on most of these. Most of them, it's going to be a one-step answer. There's going to be a few mixed in where you might have to do 2 steps. But those answers should come pretty easy as we're going through those. Okay, now I think in Math Excel, if you're working through the homework on that one, I think what they're going to actually do in that case is they'll give you an x equals, and then they just give you a box that's over here. And then you'll just write these 2 answers in the box. Okay, and they'll tell you to use a comma to separate the 2 answers on those. So if the answers are negative 2 and 7, you just put negative 2 and 7, and then you're good to go. Okay, so now let's do this one. So everybody all right there? All right, let's give you another one of those. Just a little bit different here. So let's go to x squared minus 7x equals negative 12. Okay, first thing is it doesn't equal 0, so we've got everything over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this minus 12, we'll add 12, make that equal 0, and then we'll add 12 over here. So that'll make that x squared minus 7x plus 12. Now, and remember in that case, x squared and x, this one doesn't have an x with it, it's just a number, so you cannot add it to anything up here. It's just going to stay separate and kind of put it back behind it there. Okay, so now we've got it equal to 0, so we're good to go. And again, if you go back and look at that part of it, just kind of, once we've got equal to 0, look at everything that's here. You got 1, 2, 3 terms, and it's basically like the one above it. We've got the a value is 1, so we're back over here to this part. So we're going to find the factors of the c term whose sum equals the b term. So it's the factors of, put that over here on the side, positive 12, where the sum is going to equal negative 7. Oops, slide over, it's going to sit there. Okay, now a lot of people just jump out and they'll go, oh, well, that's going to be 3 and 4. Well, maybe, maybe not. Because it could, and again, you got to be careful with the signs as you go through some of these. So again, if you go through your factors, if we start with 1 and 12, again, the sum is negative 7 for the B term, which means that negative goes on the bigger number. If you divide a positive 12 and a negative 12, you're going to get a negative 1. So in that case, they're both going to be negative. Yep. So 1 and 12 is not going to get us to 7. It could be 2 and 6 because we got 2 times 6. That gets us close, but doesn't give us to 7. If we go with 3 and 4, that would get us to 7. Or negative 3 and negative 4. Okay. And again, here's where we'll got to go that extra step from what we did yesterday. Because yesterday, once we got this, we had x minus 3 and x minus 4. And again, that's where we stopped yesterday. Today, we're going to go that one extra step. And then we're going to set this x minus 3 equal to 0. We're going to set the x minus 4 equal to 0. Okay. Again, math on this one shouldn't be too hard. It's x minus 3. So when we add 3 to both sides, we get x equals 3. This one's x minus 4. When we add the 4 over, we get x equals 4. Right. And there's our two answers that we're looking for. Okay, so again, the big thing we're doing today is still just practicing the factoring that we did the last couple of days. And then once we've got to the point where we were factoring like we were the last couple of days, then we're just going to take each parentheses, set each parentheses equal to 0, and then just solve it out from there. All right, any thoughts, any comments, any questions so far? All right. Again, we'll just do a few more here. So let's go with 9x squared minus 25 equals 0. Okay, so if it's equal to 0, so we're good there. How many terms we got? Got 2, right? So now we got to look for the 2 terms. And for the 2 terms, we're back on the red sheet we had to start with on that one. We're looking for a greatest common factor first. Well, 9 and 25, there's nothing you can divide. You can divide 3 into 9, but 3 won't go into 25, so there's not a greatest common factor. So after that, we're doing perfect squares. So if we've got 9x squared, that's 3x times 3x, right? 3 times 3 is 9. For 25, that's 5 times 5. Okay, so we're going to factor this one. We're going to put a 3x plus 5 and a 3x minus 5. So again, 2 terms. It's either greatest common factor or it's perfect squares. Both of these are perfect squares because 9 is 3 times 3. 25 is 5 times 5. Okay, and again, last time we looked at that, we had the parentheses where we're done. This one we're going to go. Now, here's the kind of good thing on this one is when we're solving these 2 parentheses, because they're exact same numbers, just different for the sign on this one, if we solve this equation, or this parentheses, we add 5. If we've got 3x equals 5, we're going to go back and then divide by 3. So x would equal 5/3. And again, leave that in fraction form. You don't have to change it to a decimal. Just leave it just like that. Just leave it 5/3. Okay. The only thing that's going to be different, and then this will be the same every time you do this, and this is kind of the good thing about perfect squares. Anytime you do the perfect squares, whatever one answer is, if this answer is positive, this is going to be the exact same answer, but it's going to be negative. So if this answer is 5/3, the other one's going to be negative 5/3. Because when you solve this one, instead of adding 5 to both sides, you're going to subtract 5, which means this will be a negative over here. So every time you get one answer, you don't even have to work it out. The other answer is going to be the exact same answer, just change it from a positive to a negative, or if it's a negative, you change it from a negative to a positive. All right, let's do about 2 more. And then let y'all start working on some of these. So again, if you get 2 terms, it's actually a little bit of a shortcut once you get those, because again, if you've got one answer, the other answer is the exact same thing. It's just one's going to be positive and one will be negative. All right, example 4. Again, if you look at it, we've got 3 terms. So now for this one, first term is not 1, it's 4. So that puts us here. There's not a greatest common factor because the numbers are 4, 1, and negative 5. So we've got nothing there. So we're going to do the AC and the grouping method for this thing. Okay, so very first thing we're going to do is we're going to do 4 times negative 5. We're going to multiply those two together. Okay, again, you don't have to worry about the x squared. It's just the number. It's just 4 times negative 5. So it's a negative 20. So we're going to find the factors of negative 20. And we need the sum to equal the middle number. Again, there's not a middle number there. So in that case, it's just plus x. So that'd be an understood 1 that would be there. So I need the sum to equal positive 1. Okay, so then just start with the list. So we got 1 and 20. Okay, again, we know it's not going to be 1 and 20, but the main thing is on this one, this B term is positive. So the bigger number's got to be positive. So if you divide a negative 20 and a positive 20, that will give you a negative 1. So bigger number will be positive, smaller number is going to be negative 20s. All right, so if we go 2 and 10, positive on the bigger number, negative on the smaller number. Again, 10 and 2 is not going to get us down to 1. 20 and 1 doesn't get there. If you take 20, divide it by 3, 3 doesn't work. If you take 20 and divide it by 4, it'll go 5 times. Okay, and since we checked 4 and 5 was the answer, 5 is already on the list. So if we get another answer that's on the list, that's it. That's all the factors it can be. The only pair that gets us to 1 would have to be the 4 and the 5. Okay. And again, what we said yesterday was we're going to take this 1x that we've got that's here, and we're going to put in these two numbers. That's the negative 4x and the 5x. So we're going to take out the positive 1. We're going to put a negative 4x and a positive 5x. And then that minus 5 was, again, still on the end there. Okay. So again, we're going to replace the middle term, the B term, with these two things. So we're replacing a positive 1 with negative 4 plus 5. and just put X's on those. Okay, again, the whole reason we do that is now it's 4 terms. Now we get to do the grouping, and that's part y'all said that was pretty easy. So now we're going to do the 4 terms with the factor by grouping. So we're going to put the first 2 together. We're going to put the last 2 together. And then in the middle, we're going to put a plus sign. Okay, so the first 2, we've got 4x squared and we got a 4x. So obviously we can take out the 4. We got x squared and x. We can take out one of the x's. So then we got 4 divided by 4 is 1. And again, you don't necessarily always have to put a 1 there. We'll see. Take out one of the x's, you got 1 left over. You got 4 divided by 4 is -1. And if you take out the x, there's nothing there. So that's 1x minus 1. But for that part of it, you don't have to put the 1 with the x. You can just leave that as x minus 1. Okay, now, and I know somebody's thinking, they're like, okay, well, if we didn't have to put the 1 on the x, do we have to put the 1 here? Yes, because if you leave that, because basically here's what it is. If you've got 2 numbers in the parentheses up here, even when you take out the greatest common factor, you still got to have 2 terms down here. So we got 2. So if you leave that 1 out, you're just left with an x. Because some people are like, oh, that's just a 1. I don't need that. I can just get rid of it, just like we got rid of this one. But if you do that, you've only got 1 term in the parentheses. So if you start with 2 terms up here, you still got to have 2 terms down here. Okay, second parentheses. We got a 5 and a 5, so we know we can take out a 5. We'll do 5x divided by 5. That'll leave you with the x. And then same thing. We'll do 5 divided by 5. That's going to be a 1. So we get these 2 parentheses to match up. Okay, so then we can pull these 2 together. So that's 4x plus 5. And then the x minus 1. Okay, and that's where we were a couple of days ago. That we got to there, we can stop it. But again, if we're solving it, if we've got this equals 0 in there, if we got the equal sign anywhere, that's where we got to go that extra step. Now we're going to take this 4x plus 5, set it equal to 0, and then take the x minus 1 and set it equal to 0. Okay, this one will go really easy because it's x minus 1 equals 0. We're just going to add 1 to both sides, and we got our answer. So that one is x equals 1. For this one, we're going to get rid of the plus 5, so we'll subtract 5 from both sides. So that'll be 4x equals -5. And we divide by 4, so that x would be -5 fourths. And again, fractions are okay. You don't have to worry about simplify. Well, you have to simplify it down, but if it's improper like that, you don't have to change it back to 1 1/4. So as long as you can't, if this was 8/4, you'd make it 2, but it's 5/4. That won't simplify, so that's just your 2 answers there. Okay. One more problem, and then we're done for the day. Okay, so far, every answer we've had so far has had 2 answers. We're going to show you one where you actually get 3 answers. Okay, and again, last one of the day. So we'll go 2x to the third minus 14x squared equals -24x. Okay, so first thing again, it doesn't equal 0. So we've already got these two numbers over here. Let's take this term and put it over here. So we're going to do a plus 24 to make this side equal 0. Okay, and then we'll do a plus 24 over here. Okay, so that one's x to the third. So again, it stays like it is. That one's x squared. And even though that one has an x, it's not an x squared or an x to the third. So that one just sticks on to the end of it there. If y'all remember back when we were doing the combining like terms and different things, if this is x third, x to the second, x to the first, you cannot combine those together because you'd have to have an x squared or an x to the third to add it back over here for this one. Okay, so first thing is we've got three terms. So we're back over here. Right now, the first term is not 1, so that puts us with this part. So the terms are in descending order because we got x to the third, x to the second, x to the first, so we're good there. Look for greatest common factor. Well, they're all even numbers, right? 2x to the third, 14, and 24, so you can divide them all by 2. So we're going to take out the greatest common factor first. So you can divide them all by 2. They all have an x, so we can take a 2 and an x out of every single one of them. Okay, so then we got 2 divided by 2. That's a 1. We'll see if we need it here in a minute. Take out one of the x's. That's going to leave you with x squared. Take 14 divided by 2. That's 7. Take out one of the x's. Got x to the first. Take 24 divided by 2. That's a 12. Take out the x's, and then we don't have any more x's, so that'd be it. Okay, so we took out the greatest common factor. Now, and some people are like, all right, what do we do now? So now that we've got this greatest common factor on the outside, just kind of ignore that one for a minute. Now on the inside, we've got 1x squared minus 7x minus 12. Still got three terms, but a little easier now because now the first term is 1 because it's just 1x squared. So now we got the shortcut. Now all we need is the factors of positive 12. Where the sum would equal negative 7. And somebody will be asking, what about that 2x on the outside? Just hide it for a little bit. We'll come back to that one in a minute. We don't need it right now. Because right now we're just worried about what's on the inside of the parentheses. Okay, so we know 12 starts off with 1 and 12. The sum is negative 7, so again, that sign goes with the bigger number. And if you divide a positive and a negative, it makes the other number a negative. All right, so that won't work. So if we go 2 and 6, again, both negative. Still not there. So then we got 3 and 4. Again, that's the pair we're looking at there. And again, I think that was one of the other examples we had for that one, that we had a 3 and a 4 with that one. Okay, again, still not doing anything with that 2x. We just covered up for a little bit because we're still working on the inside of the parentheses. So that's going to be x minus 3 and x minus 4. Okay, and then once we got this factored out, we got our parentheses, then we can bring that 2x and put it back in front there. Okay, now one thing with this one is, even though there's not a parentheses on that one, you can think about that as having like a parentheses around it. That you won't really see that, but you can go ahead and kind of think about it that way. So now we've got 1, 2, 3%, 3 parentheses set equal to 0. So we'll do that. So we're going to do 2x equal to 0. I'll do x minus 3 equal to 0, and then x minus 4 equal to 0. All right, and on the first one, if you divide by 2, well, it's still 0, so that's still x equals 0. This one, if it's minus 3, we're going to add 3 to both sides. That's x equals 3. This one will add 4 to both sides. I got x equals 4. Okay, so in that case, we've got 3 answers for that one and not 2. Okay. Again, you may be saying, why we got three answers and why, the other ones had two. If you go back up here to the original problem, it was x to the third. So the biggest power for that one was x to the third. So that means we're going to need three answers. On all the other problems that we did back here, we started off with x squared, so we're only looking for two answers. X squared, two answers. Oh, two answers there. Even back here, that was x squared, so we had two answers. So whatever the biggest power of x is, that's how many answers that we're going to look for. So x to the third gave us three answers there.